is provisioning? Provisioning is a craft in Elder Scrolls Online where you can actually craft food and drinks that give you a temporary buff. What do these buffs do? Well, it depends. If you have a food or you create a food, the buff will actually add some to your max stat of whatever stat it is buffing. If you create a drink and you drink it on back, it will actually improve your recovery or your regeneration for whatever stat it is buffing. So they each do a little bit different things. And what do you need to start? Well, you need ingredients, a cooking fire, and recipes. So let's take a look at the skill tree that is for provisioning. Our very first passive is for recipe quality. You're going to start out with one skill point already in this without ever actually having to use a skill point. That will allow you to create normal or green recipes. Once you put a second skill point in, you'll be able to use blue recipes. And when you've put your third skill point in, you'll be able to make the complex or the purple recipes. Moving along, another thing that you will have a skill point already into is recipe improvement. This actually determines the level of recipe you can craft. So once you find that you can no longer craft something that's your own level, a good hint is you probably have to put a skill point into recipe improvement so that you can use those new higher level recipes that you've been finding in the world. There's actually 6 skill points in total that can be put into this so that you are allowed to make all the way up to veteran rank 10 recipes. Alright, our third passive in the provisioning skill line is Gourmand. Here, you'll see that with 3 out of 3 skill points, it adds 20 minutes to the duration of any eaten food. If you only have 1 skill point in, it'll add 5 minutes, and with 2 skill points in, it'll add 10 minutes. This isn't directly to do with your actual crafting of the food, because the items you craft will not automatically have this feature. It's just when you actually eat the food. This is why it might also be a good idea to level up provisioning no matter what, so that you can benefit from the extra time on all that expensive food you're going to be crafting up. Next up, we have Connoisseur. This is the exact same passive, except it works for drinks. So with 3 out of 3 skill points, it adds a 20-minute duration to any consumed drink. First skill point is 5 minutes, second skill point is 10 minutes. You don't really need to have both of these if you only use one or the other, but it's a good idea just in case you do flip back and forth to have both of them. Here we have Chef. With 3 out of 3 skill points, this actually creates 3 extra servings for each food made. So when you actually craft something, instead of only crafting 1, you're going to craft a total of 4 items. This really helps when you're using some rare, hard to find ingredients, because rather than only making 1 item, you're making 4. So naturally, with 1 out of 3 skill points, you'll only craft an extra 1. With 2 out of 3 skill points, you will craft an extra 2 food items. Brewer, once again, it's the same passive as Chef, except this one works for drinks. So you create 3 extra servings for each drink recipe made. Once again, 1 skill point, 1 extra serving, 2 skill points, 2 extra servings. And here we have that great little passive you find in all the crafting skill lines almost, Hireling. When you go offline, a hireling will find food or drink ingredients for you. Your hireling has a higher chance of returning spices or flavorings. Can be used every 24 hours. So, when you have 1 out of 3 skill points, your hireling will still come every 24 hours, but you won't have that higher chance of flavoring or seasonings. And if you were to put 3 out of 3 skill points, that hireling will actually come every 12 hours. Something to remember though is these mails do not come if you do not log on. So if you pick the 12-hour option, it's actually you get a new mail 12 hours from the last time you logged on. It's the same for the 24-hour option. You get a new mail from 24 hours after you last logged on. It's not always the same time frame. If you log on erratically, it will change up your timers. So first of all, we'll talk about how to find a cooking fire. To find a cooking fire, you can scroll over different areas and you will find occasional places that have an icon that say cooking fire beside them. Inns almost always have a cooking fire in them. But another really neat feature about Elder Scrolls Online is that almost anywhere as you find a fire, you can cook on it. So, next up, you're going to need recipes. Recipes all have an icon that looks like a scroll here, and they can really be found in furniture, but they can also be found in other lootable objects, and they do drop from mobs, so you have a good chance of finding some. You can also look and purchase recipes from other players. Crafting writs will also supply you with recipes as rewards. That's really great. So let's look at the type of recipes available to us. Here we have a green food recipe. So this will increase our max health by 3,931. Although, if we look at this blue recipe, which is actually a drink, we'll notice it increases my health recovery and stamina recovery. So when you have a green recipe, it will only buff one stat. When you have a blue recipe, it will buff 2 stats, but not quite as good as a green recipe would have done to just 1 stat. When you have a purple recipe, it will actually buff all 3 stats. But once again, not quite as big of a buff as your blue recipe would have done to 2, or your green recipe would have done to 1. Just so you're aware, there is roughly 244 food recipes in the game, and about 244 drink recipes in the game. These do span your whole level from level 1 all the way to veteran rank 10, but there's a lot of recipes that can be found. Another thing to note is that if you actually steal recipes, you do not need to launder them before you can actually consume them and learn the recipe. Feel free to skip that laundering fee, just learn the recipe right away. So the third item you need, other than a cooking fire and recipes, in order to be able to craft something in provisioning, is ingredients. Now, ingredients are pretty easy to come by. They can be found in pretty much every lootable type of container in the world. This is even easy with the justice system because delves and dungeons, all of those crates and barrels are just stuffed full of ingredients. Another thing really cool is if you see like an open box of carrots, when you loot that item, it will be carrots. Same if you see a basket full of melons, when you loot that basket, you will receive melons. Something also really handy is that if you go fishing, you can actually fillet your fish now. Alright, so Beckon, we went fishing and we caught some fish. You'll find fish under your consumable tab. And now watch this. Watch this. This is going to be a gooder. Oh, the green fish? That's actually an achievement fish. It goes towards an achievement. So I'm not going to fillet that guy. I don't actually think I can. But we're going to fillet this guy. See that? Boom. So now if you look in my materials, you'll see I have fish. And because I have an add-on, those are all the different recipes I know that fish can be used in. So I just go press E, I haul the cleaver out of my back pocket, and I fillet that fish. So you can also find other ingredients from members of the game. You can buy them from guild traders, buy them in zone chat, maybe you have a friend who just gives you some, all sorts of good stuff. There's just 2 ingredients in all of provisioning that are a little bit tougher to get than most. This is the 2 ingredients needed to craft purple recipes. These are used in every purple recipe. So here we have Frost Miriam. This is actually involved in crafting all purple food recipes. It's very rare to receive these actually. You cannot find them in the world at all. You have to be signed up for that hireling or do crafting writs in order to be able to get this. Our other really rare ingredient is brevet juice. This is actually used to craft all your purple drink recipes. So make sure you get a hireling because you're not going to be finding either of those ingredients anytime soon. Another way to acquire the ingredients that you need for provisioning is purchase them from a grocer. Now, the only items you can actually purchase from a grocer are fresh produce. As you can tell, apples, bananas, radish, tomatoes, all that good stuff. As well, they do come at the high price of 150 gold. So you're probably a lot better off finding these items or possibly purchasing them from other players, but this is an option if you're short a couple of ingredients. So once you've acquired some recipes, some ingredients, you've learned the recipes, and you're at a cooking fire, you'll now be able to look a little deeper into what you can create. Here, we're going to take a look at how this is all organized. You'll notice that everything underneath of meat actually increases my health. So everything under this will increase my health, and it actually sorts it by level. Ta-da! If we move on to fruit dishes, we'll notice that everything here actually adds to my magicka stat. Doesn't matter where, as long as you're using fruit, it'll add to your magicka. Now, of course, vegetable will increase your stamina. It's pretty easy to figure out what type of ingredients you'll like best because you'll know that vegetables always mean stamina, fruit always mean magicka, and meat always means health. Now, once we get into the blue and purple recipes, it gets a little different because we are doubling up on our stats. So all of the savories will increase your max health and your max magicka. Doesn't matter what level we look at, they all increase the same two stats. Our ragus will all increase max health and max stamina. Entremet will increase max magicka and max stamina. Once again, they're all grouped up according to what they actually buff. And gourmet, of course, is all your purple recipes because this will buff all three of your stats. So you'll notice that all the foods we just went over always added a new amount to our maximum health or our maximum magicka or whatever stat it actually buffed. This just makes your pool bigger for that attribute. Let's move on to drinks and look at how they're sorted. Here we find alcoholic drinks. You'll find beers, lagers, ales, whiskey, even some hooch. All of this will actually increase your health recovery. This will raise your regeneration so that you'll get health back faster when you're low on it. Next up, we have tea. All teas help with your magicka recovery. Tonics, of course, all help with your stamina recovery. Liqueurs help with your health and your magicka recovery. And your tinctures help with your health and stamina. So, cordial teas, of course, help with your magicka and stamina recovery. Distillates, that is actually all your purple recipes, so that will add regeneration rates to all three of your stats. So they're great. Once again, you'll notice all these purple recipes always use Bervet juice. To actually go ahead and craft something, you'll just have to take a look and choose what recipe you have. This makes it really easy if you select have ingredients so that you know all of your options available to you, you can actually create. Here we can make some chicken and biscuits maybe. We can see here how many of each ingredient we have. Like I mentioned, you can actually use ingredients out of your bag as well as out of your bank. So you don't have to carry everything in your bag all the time. As well, if you have stolen ingredients in your backpack, it will use those up first, which is fantastic. If you've been out stealing ingredients, you can go cook those up without laundering them. Even if you have the same ingredient in your bank, it will always use the stolen items first. Alright, something to really help level up your provisioning, as well a great way to get some awesome new recipes, is to actually complete crafting writs. These are a daily quest that you can actually start doing when you are level 6. You'll have to run up to one of these boards here, grab a little note off, and it'll lead you towards a person near a guild hall actually that will certify you in each individual craft if you so choose. After you are certified, you'll be able to run up to these boards every single day and pull a handbill from the board and take on the writ. When you look into your quest journal, you'll notice that writ is now available to you, and you'll have to acquire some certain items. Now, something to know is that you can actually craft all these items, hand them in. You may get the same recipe back, you may not, but this is a great way to also acquire those purple ingredients that cannot be looted in-game. They only come from crafting writs as well as your hirelings. So let's head off and finish up this crafting writ. First we'll head to a cooking fire. On our crafting writ, we can see that we have to craft Argonian saddle-cured rabbit and sipping Imga tonic. So let's first look for that Argonian rabbit. We're pretty sure this should be under a meat dish. Here we find Argonian saddle-cured rabbit, and I do have the ingredients available to craft it. So I'm going to go ahead and craft it. Here it's going to tell you completed that portion of the writ. Now we'll look back and we need to make sipping Imga tonic. So we're going to move over to brews because your writ will always ask you to craft a food as well as a drink. And we're going to look for that Imga tonic. Oh, we need to go under tonics first of all. Here we have sipping Imga tonic. So let's go ahead and craft that. Now we'll say that we've completed crafting that item as well. And if you look back at your quest journal, you'll have to deliver the goods to some town. So we're already in the town we need to deliver it to, so we'll just head there now. Once you've found where you need to drop off the goods, you're gonna place the goods in a delivery crate. Once you're done that, you'll actually receive a provisioner's pack. As well, you'll receive some inspiration, which is your crafting experience, and some gold.
May you inherit a country flowing with waters.
You also do gain a little bit of experience from all your crafting writs. So now we'll open up our inventory, and we'll open up the provisioner's pack and see what we've received. Wow, we received Happy Ogrum Amber Ale Recipe. And with the add-on I have installed, Sous Chef, you can see I don't know this recipe. To go ahead and use a recipe you don't know, you just hover over it in your inventory and press E. Now I will be able to make Happy Ogrum Amber Ale.